So after looking at the potato bed and wondering what we're going to do, I'm going to move on to some sowing. Now, yes, it's still quite early for sowing, but there is still a lot you can sow. I'm trying to focus more on sowings that can actually stay in the greenhouse or the polytunnel, so undercover at this time of year. The one thing that I am going to sow today is Cape gooseberry. That will have to go home. It needs a continuous temperature of around about 15 to get it to germinate, so that will go home with me. But hopefully everything else can start germinating down here. But one of the things I do want to do this year is incorporate more plants and flowers down here. Now the husband's not so keen because it takes up valuable vegetable growing. But after seeing a lot of the pests last year, I'm a firm believer in trying to bring in natural predators. Now when we came onto the plot, there was thousands and thousands of ladybirds, and they did help somewhat. But this year I haven't seen any. So I want to make sure that I'm providing some cover for the ladybirds and the bees and all these kind of predator insects that will help keep certain pests down. So some of the ones I've got, last year I sowed foxgloves. I've got several foxglove plants to actually come down here this year. I've also got wild meadow flower, which I'm going to sprinkle at the top of the allotment. We have I won't call it a rubbish mound, but it's a mound full of old soil and things that had weeds and stuff in that we just tipped at the top. This is going to be covered with wildflowers. And then I'm going to be planting hundreds of sunflower seeds around, as well as some Nostrum and some other little bits and pieces. So today I'm actually going to plant those Nostrum and the sweet peas. And yes, I'm quite late with the sweet peas. So fingers crossed they actually do germinate okay. Now the sweet peas, I've just found an old pack of seeds. It's an old-fashioned mix, Wilco favourite, Nasturtium. Now both of these I'm just going to shove in some pots and fingers crossed we may get something out of it. Now these I'm going to just germinate down here. I'm not going to take them home for any warmth. And these are from April as well, but I want to get these in. So I'm going to give them a go now. They're going to be under cover or under glass. And I'm just going to put maybe 1 or 2 seeds in each one. And we'll do the Nostrum first. Now I've only got a few of these because we did actually plant these last year. And I'm going to just put 2 in a hole. Now there's probably better ways of doing this, but that's what I'm going to do. And they're going to sit quite happily on that shelf for now. I'm quite looking forward to seeing the foxgloves, because fingers crossed they may flower this year. They were in mixed colours as well, but I had so many seed that I had excess than what I needed for the garden itself. So now I'm going to do some sweet pea. Again, just a traditional sweet pea mix. Now because these are old seed, I'm actually going to plant them 2 to each one. Now my intention is with the sweet peas is to actually grow them up along the pallet fence. I think these would look quite nice. Now because I have got these in dirty damp hands, I'm actually going to have to sow the rest of these, which is not really a big deal because like I said, they're old seed. I love the centre sweet pea. That strong fragrance that you get. I really do enjoy it. Now I've got an old cloche, which I'll just shove over the top of all of them a little bit. Give them a little bit of protection. This is where I like the square pots. They fit things better. So one of the other things I'm going to grow today, or sow today, is spinach. Now we have got some 10p discounted perpetual spinach, and I want to give this a go. I've always wanted to grow it. Now I like having spinach, either to cook with or to actually eat raw. and I'm just going to plant a few in each one because we've got so much excess. And if I remember right, these are happily to be multi-sown. So I'm aiming for about 3 per sow. Spinach has many uses, either a salad or for cooking. And it freezes very well too, if you want to use it for cooking, obviously. Now the next one is going to be Lazio. It's an F1 variety. Now this is just our first sowing of spinach. Now a lot of the times we will actually just pick the leaves and let it carry on growing. If I get a chance to have another sowing after, I might do. But if I remember rightly, they bolt quite a lot in the summer. So I'll probably have a sowing later on in the year. Okay, so now we've got some Apollo spinach. Cover all the seeds. Now the next one I'm going to grow is some Cape gooseberries. Now I've spoke about these before. It's something that I have not grown before. I know in America I think you call it ground cherries, and a few of you have suggested this. So I'm going to give it a go. Now in this country they grow as annuals in general, but apparently you can take cuttings from it later on in the year, or if you're in a warm enough climate they'll actually continuously growing for a couple of years, but apparently the fruits get smaller. I don't know, I haven't tried it. So bearing in mind that these can grow up to 2 meters, but in general they grow up to about 1 meter and 1 meter wide. You've got to make sure you've got space. Now from what I've read, you can grow undercover in a greenhouse, polytunnel, or you can have a pot where you keep it in a sheltered position. Now I used to like buying Cape gooseberries, but they've got incredibly expensive in the supermarket. So when I found out that I could actually grow these, I thought fantastic. But how many plants do I actually want? But I think I'm going to have an experiment. I think I'm going to grow 1 or 2 in the smaller greenhouse, and then 1 or 2 in pots outside, and see which ones actually produce better. Now these seeds are absolutely tiny, and I'll pop the rest of these away. They are tiny, tiny seeds. Now I am putting quite a few in here. Not intentionally. This is not how you sow Cape gooseberries. I always have a hard time with small seeds. I can't actually feel things on the tips of my fingers. Apparently they're quite prolific fruiters as well, and they make really good jams, and they freeze very well. So I'm really actually hopeful this year of a really good Cape gooseberry harvest, because I love the idea of having fruit available in the freezer all year round. Now these will have to be germinated indoors. They need a bit of heat to be able to germinate, so these will have to come home with me. Never got enough room. No matter how big we go, we never have enough room. Okay, the next one we're going to do is kohlrabis. Now I was supposed to have done this about a week or maybe 2 ago, but leaving them now means they can actually be sown directly outdoors. So with it being under glass, it should be absolutely fine. Now I like kohlrabis. It's not everyone's kind of cup of tea, but I actually quite like them. Very thinly sliced, almost like matchsticks, and made into a coleslaw. It's a really nice bit of crunch. Also roasted. I really did enjoy them roasted. So we're going to plant quite a few of these, because this year I want to make sure I can get some for the freezer. And for this, because we're doing a seed tray, and we'll prick them out as and when they germinate. Now these are the purple Vienna. Again, Wilco cheap. We had these last year and they were really tasty. May have just kicked the bucket. What are you lot actually really looking forward to sowing and growing this year? What's your favourite thing to grow and eat? I think with me it's raspberries. I love the fact that they are so incredibly expensive to buy from the supermarket, and I get an abundant harvest every year. Well, I say that, fingers crossed for these new canes this year. And that's the kaharl robis. So as they grow, prick them out and then they'll be planted out later on. So the one thing that we tried last year was celery. Now we bought actual plants, but they were all very stubby, and with it being such a hot summer, I think they struggled because of the lack of water. So I'm going to try celery again. Now I've heard celery is really well known for being extremely difficult to grow from seed, but we're going to give it a go. Apparently these are light sensitive, so they need light to germinate. So these will be placed on top of the compost itself. Now the ones we're going for is green sleeves. I don't know whether it's any good, can't give any advice on that. And these will have to go into the home, so these will be coming back with me as well. And that's going to go home. I'm just going to firm the seeds onto the surface without pushing them under, and they'll go onto a nice sunny windowsill. Fingers crossed we'll actually get some germination and actually be able to have some celery, but they are great for stocks and stews. So having some chopped up in the freezer to add to my stews through the winter, that's something I'm really looking forward to. This is what my mouse has left me. Bless him. So that's all we're going to be sowing for today, because it's still quite wet and it's still quite cold. But it gives us a little bit of a head start on some stuff. Now obviously we are growing in a greenhouse or a polytunnel. So if you haven't got cover outside, be it a cold frame or the greenhouse or polytunnel, then you may have to hold fire a little bit longer.